Hello, Controlled Chaos speaking, and today we are going into Genesys Structure Deck Reviews, reviewing the, dang it, what's it called again? The Gates of the Underworld. This is a deck that's based on the Dark World archetype. And we're going to try to do this in 30 minutes as always. So, let's get started, starting with Grapha, Dragon Lord of Dark World. Dark World monsters have an effect that activates when they're discarded that gets more powerful when the opponent is the one making you discard the card, which I'm sure will explain a few of the cards down the line. But furthermore, this most of the discard cards getting augmented are also pretty good. So, this here is the boss monster of the deck, Grapha, Dragon Lord of Dark World. And he's had a few retrains since now, but let's have a look. You can special summon this card by returning a Dark World monster you control to the hand, except for himself. If discarded to the graveyard, you can destroy a target on your opponent's side of the field, and if discarded by your opponent's effect, you can also look at a random card in your opponent's hand, and if it's a monster, special summon it to your side of the field. So right off the bat, we're seeing effects that help to continue the effects of Dark World monsters, giving you more chances to use their effects, and as well as bringing out a powerful pretty powerful level 8 monster onto the field that can rival Blue Eyes once the field spell's on the field. What is the field spell? We'll look into that later. Let's see. So, strangely enough, we're at our first point value card, and it's starting to make me think that we'll probably see a whole lot of those as we go on. Next, Snow, Unlight of Dark World. I believe this one was also introduced in this deck. If discarded its discard effect is discard by an opponent's what? You can target a monster in opponent's graveyard at a Dark World. If this card is discarded to the graveyard by a card effect, if it was discarded from your hand to your graveyard by an opponent's card effect, you can target a monster in your opponent's graveyard. Add a Dark World. Okay, I see it now. So that entire first part was the cost line. So add a Dark World card from your deck to your hand, then special summon that target, if any, in defense position. So yeah, how it reads is, if this card was sent to the graveyard from your hand by an opponent's card effect, you can also target an opponent's monster in their graveyard. Yes. Then you can add a Dark World card from the deck, then special summon that target in defense position. So similar to how Grapha works, but this time this is your searcher, and you'll most likely get your field spell or Grapha himself with this card. Let's see. And wow, we are going up in points. This is a first. Alright. Ceruli, Guru of Dark World. I'm pretty sure this archetype is very powerful in its own right. Let's see. If discarded to the graveyard, special summon it to your opponent's side of the field in defense position. If special summoned by the effect of a Dark World card, your opponent discards a card. This one, awkwardly done, but it's a way to facilitate the effects that activate that when your opponent's card effects discard a card, because this would technically work. It's owned by you, but the effect would be controlled by the opponent. So that's an interesting addition. Ceruli, as in cerulean. And if you look hard enough, you might notice a lot of the names have to do with colors. Anyways, Zur, Knight of Dark World, level 4 normal monster. I'm sure there's a good amount of search ability with that. some combos you could probably do with that. It's just in here because it's a normal monster and it's a Dark World monster. Moving on. Range. Oh, another normal, number level 4 normal monster. We might see some normal monster support in this deck. Who knows? But this one has more defense, but that doesn't exactly play as... That doesn't necessarily have as much strength as in the common game as much, but we can still include it here. I think it might help with the point values. There it is. Range. Scar, Scout of Dark World. When destroyed by battle and sent to the graveyard, add a level 4 lower Dark World monster from the deck to your hand. A sort of floater, but more a recruiter. But I've already gone over why recruiters and floaters aren't exactly top tier, because it requires your opponent to destroy them by battle. It puts the ball in their court. This one doesn't even give you a monster on the field, but it can be forgiven that because a lot of the Dark World monsters want to be in your hand. Let's see. Kaki, Gorilla of Dark World. If discarded to the graveyard by a card effect, target a monster on the field and destroy it. Very powerful. Very powerful. Not much need to be said. That effect is pretty powerful. You might want 2 in the deck, but you'd probably want to put in more space for cards that can actually give you field presence. But this is a pretty good part of the strategy. I mean, outside of it targeting, it's pretty good. If there's better options, you might replace it, but for now, this is pretty good. Grand Tactician. If this card is discarded to the graveyard by a card effect, target spell or trap on the field, destroy it. Kind of the same as Kaki. Let's see here. Would it be pronounced green? Probably not, no. Brow, Huntsman of Dark World. I believe this one had points. I saw that this one had points to it. If discarded to the graveyard by a card effect, draw a card. If it was done so by an opponent's card effect, you draw 2 cards. A way to search out your deck. And it probably combos off of cards that draw cards by discarding. Let's see. And yep. More points are added now. Beige. If discarded to the graveyard by card effect, special summon it. So yeah, this... You would definitely want 3 of this card because this will definitely be an excellent starter to have for any combos that the Dark World deck will have. You discard it, and now you got something on the field, and you've yet to use your normal summon. You can even use it to tribute off for the level 5 Dark World monsters. So very nice. Let's see, beige, yes. And the good thing is, no points to it. So yeah, definitely have that at 3. Alright, first quarter review. We are now, the strategy of the deck is now very obvious. And we see a good amount of ways to get it. We have a few ways of getting it going. So let's continue and see where it goes. Next we got Braun, Mad King of Dark World. Let's see. Okay, this one is a bit different, but if you can manage it, maybe put some... Like, this one's a little off kilter, but this is one of the parts... This is one of the cards that would theoretically instigate this strategy, but here's the thing. When this card inflicts battle damage to your opponent, you can discard a card, but here's the problem. At this point, when you're attacking your opponent, you want your entire field to actually already be set up. So I think this effect would make Braun be one of the cards that you'd want to replace, unless you have a lot of cards that allow for direct attacks. Somehow I don't see that. And this one's stats would require power boosting, and the magic number for this guy would probably be too high to really consider that. Though he could be an alternative if the better options are far too many points, which is a very likely possibility. And I think we've already reached. I think right here we've gone over the limit. Silva, Warlord of Darkworld. When discarded to the graveyard by a card effect, special summon this card. Then, if discarded by an opponent's card effect, your opponent places exactly 2 cards from their hand to the bottom of their deck in any order. A very powerful effect because this effect makes it a more powerful Cyber Dragon. And we all know about the advent of Cyber Dragon by now, I would think. A lot of the old guard, at least. And its secondary effect, while not easily done, we already saw one way of making it go off, so getting rid of your opponent's hand advantage is a very powerful thing, which explains why it has been assigned 100 points, which means that this card would likely need to be gotten rid of in order for the deck to actually be usable. So right here we're at bust. Let's see. Right here we are at bust question mark territory. So, dang it. So what that means is that it is over the points, but if we replace 1 or 2 cards with another copy of something in the deck, it's possible we can still use it. So let's see where it goes from here. Let's see. Gold, Warlord of Darkworld. When discarded to the graveyard by card effect, if it was done so by an opponent's card effect, you can target up to 2 cards your opponent controls, special summon this card, then destroy those targets. It reads the same as Snow, and it does the same effect as Silva, except this time it destroys cards your opponent controls if sent to the graveyard by an opponent's card effect, which probably means it has less points. Yep, no points assigned to it, so it's less powerful than Silva because it's dealing with field advantage, which is the most flexible thing. It's the most flexible thing, while hand advantage is the hardest thing to attain. Rainbow. Let's see, this is possibly a side boss. If this card is discarded from your... Let's see. Rainbow, Overlord of Darkworld. If discarded from your hand to the graveyard by an opponent's card effect, it is special summoned from the graveyard. If summoned this way, destroy all monsters your opponent controls or all spells or traps they control. So, instead of just an effect in general, to special summon this and get its effect off, you would have to have your opponent discarded. And so far we've only seen one way to do it, and it's standard level 7 fair stat-wise. It doesn't really need to see the chopping block, but if you want to get another Grapha in here, this could probably go to the wayside. Let me see, Overlord. Alright. Alright, now we're going into the non-Dark World monsters. And we've got... Let's see. We got Belial, Marquis of Darkness. Your opponent cannot target any face-up monsters you control except for Belial for an attack with spell or trap effects. Pretty good effect, I suppose. It protects your stuff. But the thing about it is, it doesn't really... I don't see any way of easily getting this guy out, and it's a level 8. And in the fast world that Yu-Gi-Oh! The Yu-Gi-Oh! Meta has these days, this could be a death sentence for it. But we'll see what the rest of the deck looks like. And then, this guy's pretty famous way back in the day. One of the first few instances of hand traps. When you take battle damage, you can special summon this card from the hand. It gains 600 attack and defense for each card in the hand. Once per turn, you can discard a card. The target of face-up monster your opponent controls with the same level as the sent monster. Take control of that face-up monster. Also, you can target a monster in the graveyard. This card levels becomes the same as that target's until the end of the turn. So, this one, however, has probably fallen out of favor for hand traps because when you take battle damage, that's possibly too late. You would want to prevent your opponent's stuff with a hand trap. And it does have pretty powerful effects, taking control of your opponent's monster and possibly facilitating an NXC summon. However, it targets, so that kind of lessens its powers. So it's a very good history lesson on what the meta was like way back in the day. Hey, Maggie. Okay. And another famous one that we've gone over, I think, 3 times at this point. When it's sent from any... Let's see. Hold on. Oh. So they've... Okay, so they've given it an errata to make it less powerful. It used to be that if it's sent anywhere to the graveyard, you add a monster with 1500 or less attack from the deck to your hand. However, they made this slower now. It has to be sent from the field to the graveyard to add a monster for your deck to your hand. And you cannot activate effects of cards with that name for the rest of the turn. And this effect can only be used once per turn. Yeah, Sangan was too powerful for an unlimited card, but now I believe he's been knocked from his throne with this errata. So, back in the day, I would say, like before this errata, I would say this would be a powerful card for the deck. Now, the errata has gotten rid of its utility and definitely needs to be replaced by something else. Let me see. Where are you, Sangan? Alright. Eudoria. When destroyed by battle, sent to the graveyard, target monster field, destroy that target. Pretty good. Pretty powerful effect, but it puts the field... It puts it in your opponent's court. So, like, same reason that floaters aren't that great, Eudoria isn't that great. Alright, Goblin King. I believe while you control another fiend monsters can attack this card. This card's attack and defense become the number of other fiend monsters on the field times 1,000. So, a Machine King. But it's not... But this would probably be something you'd want to get rid of right away. Okay. And... Alright. Grave Squirmer. Ubel, I believe, made this one famous. If this card is destroyed by battle sent to the graveyard, target a card in the field, destroy that target. See Eudoria. See Eudoria for the explanation of why he's not that great. Then we got 2 more monsters to look into, and then we'll go into the halftime review. Let's see, Card Guard. When normal or special summon, place a guard counter on it. This card gains 2 attack for each guard counter. Once per turn, you can target a face-up card you control, remove a guard counter from this card. If you do, place a guard counter on that target. Let's see, that target, if that card will ever be destroyed, remove a guard counter from it instead. So yeah, the picture kind of explains the effect very well. Card Guard, it's like, it actually functions similarly to Breaker the Magical Warrior. Comes out pretty powerful, then it can weaken itself to give protection to another card on the field. But It's a monster that can be destroyed on the field, thus rendering the guard counter useless. Because if it's got a parenthesis effect, that means that this monster has to be on the field for this part of the effect to go off. So it's an awkward card. Like, it's a pretty awkward card to use, I would say. All right. Now here's an equally famous hand trap alongside Tragodia, and a bit more powerful at that, I believe. When an opponent's monster declares a direct attack, you can special summon this card from the hand, then end the battle phase. It gets banished when it leaves the field if summoned this way. This one's a bit more powerful as it serves as a attack negate for the turn, and you get a +1 field advantage. But again, it has fallen by the wayside for more powerful options. But it seems that this is the point where structured decks seem to start incorporating hand traps. So that's an interesting thing to see. All right, so that's all the monsters. Halfway time. So it's good to see that we have a bit of a history lesson with some of the cards. Unfortunately, some of the cards made sense when this deck was released, but now they need to be taken out in lieu of better cards to use. Let's see. Now then. Dark Bribe. Counter. Let's see. This one is a counter spell for spells and it's a counter trap for spells and traps. The downside is when negating them, your opponent gets to draw a card. Now, back in the day, this didn't seem that bad, but now we have hand traps like Ghost Ogre, Snow Rabbit, Belle of the Haunted Mansion, stuff like that that'll negate your effects during your turn and become very powerful and makes them drawing cards very powerful. So Dark Bribe is now one of the lower end cards, I would say, but back lower end cards. So yeah, you would definitely want to get rid of this for something else because this gives your opponent way too much power. Let's see. Alright, now we have the field spell of the deck. The Gates of Darkworld. All fiend monsters gain 300 attack and defense. Once per turn, you can banish a fiend from the graveyard to discard a fiend, then draw a card. So, let's take a look at the points of this card. 300 attack and defense is the magic number for Grapha. Since it's a 2700, this will push it to 3000, making it rival Blue Eyes. Then, by banishing a fiend in the graveyard, you can discard a fiend, then draw a card. Now, discarding a fiend should be the obvious point here, because this will actually instigate a lot of the Dark World effects going on. Drawing a card actually is sugar on top. So let's have a look at how many points that got. Let me see. It would be in T. The Gates of Darkworld. It's gotten 5 points, which makes sense for some field spells. Okay. Darkworld Lightning. Simply put, target a set card in the field, destroy that target, then discard a card. So this is likely spell remove. This is likely trap and or spell removal or monster removal. It has to be set. But it's very good to have in for the. This is Dark World's mm, mystical space typhoon, and discarding a card isn't really that bad of a cost. In fact, it's actually its effect since it's in the second part of the effect. So something to look to consider. Dark World Lightning. There you are. Gateway to Dark World. Target a Dark World monster in the graveyard. Special summon that target. You cannot special summon monsters the turn you activate this card except by this effect, but you can normal set. Okay. So, with a lot of monsters in the graveyard, this is actually a pretty powerful Monster Reborn, especially since it's a quick play spell. You could probably surprise your opponent with this summon. Though I've not seen any Dark World monsters in this deck that you would actually want to do this with. But there could be some newer ones that could combo well off of Gateway. So, let's see here. There it is. Okay. Let me double check something. Oh no, I'll do that a little later. Okay, Dark World dealings. Each player draws a card, then each player discards a card. So it could disrupt your opponent, but also get them to their piece. But this one's more. Let's see. But it balances out because you also want to draw your card to discard your cards and then draw more cards. So it's pluses for you for a potential risk of pluses for your opponent. So it's a wash. But it has to have 5 points for something. Okay. Alright, and now we're going into the non-Dark World stuff. We have Allure of Darkness, the Dark Attribute's best friend. Draw 2 cards, then banish a dark monster from the hand. However, if you don't have any dark monsters in the hand, your entire hand gets sent to the graveyard. Let's see, so this one is, for this deck, will only be a method of getting more cards in the hand. You may want to replace it for a better deck search option, but this is there for you to start off with. Oh, there it is. And again, it's got 5 points for something. Okay, card destruction. Both players send their entire hand, discard as many cards as possible from their hands, and each player draws the same number. Simple. Been over this a few times, and it's especially powerful in decks like Dark World, which is why, last I've seen, it's had a lot of points added to it, so this could be the thing that sends it over the edge. Just about. This could make it a bust. Let's continue. Oh. And of course, because there's a field spell, you have to have terraforming. It just brings a field spell to your hand. This would likely make it an absolute bust. Yep. So the fact that this deck is a bust is no longer in question. And right in time for the penultimate quarter review. So yes, this deck, as of now, is not Genesys ready. It has too many points assigned to the cards in the deck, and let's see. Darn, I forgot my point. Yes, it does have a lot of powerful cards, but that's the problem in the Genesys format. If it was just Silva, that's enough. But now we have a whole bunch of cards that amount to over 100 points, making it very difficult to substitute cards out and in to keep it at its base value. And it's also showing me that Dark World is a very powerful contender for best decks in the Genesys format. Like Silva alone, having Silva alone in the deck would cripple it greatly. Perhaps Silva could be usable in a different deck, though. Who knows? Anyways, let's continue. And for this, I think I'll just type in dark from now on, because a lot of these are dark now. We have Dark Eruption. Target a dark monster with 1500 or less attack in the grave and add that target to your hand. Very good at recycling the Dark World monsters. Let's see here. Where are you? Dark Eruption. Yes. Dark Scheme. Your opponent can discard a card to negate this card's effect. Otherwise, both players discard 2 cards, then draw 2 cards. I've seen a few of this kind of card before. One where your opponent can stop the effect by discarding a card. And Dark Scheme itself, like, at worst, it disrupts your opponent's hand advantage. At best, it facilitates your... It basically does the same as Dark World dealings, but more so. And this also gives you an opportunity to activate your Dark World effects during your opponent's turn. So, decent. I'd say it's pretty decent. Let's see. Dark Scheme. Let's see. There you are. Forces of Darkness, and I believe that this is at 2. You target 2 Dark World monsters in the graveyard, add those targets to the hand. Dark Eruption is probably better for this because as a trap card, you would have to, at the earliest, use this during your opponent's turn. So, like, in all instances, spell cards are a bit better than trap cards because of that fact. And let me double check the number that are in here. Oh. So it wasn't where are you? So it wasn't the Forces of Darkness, it was Gateway to Dark World that was at 2. The Forces of Darkness and Gateway to Dark World is at 2. Okay. Deck Devastation Virus. Tribute Dark Monster with 2,000 more attack. And all monsters in your opponent's hand and next 3 cards they draw during the draw phase will be, let's see, yeah, 15. It works similar to Crush Card Virus, except this one destroys monsters with 1,500 or less attack, which is the more powerful now of the 2, because generally speaking, you want a bunch of monsters you can bring out to the field right away, and those are generally those with the lower attack stats. And I'm pretty sure that this is going to bring it further in. Oh, maybe not. And interesting, it's got another virus trap. Let's see. All spells and traps they control. Let's see. It requires a dark monster with 2,500 or more attack, which is a pretty tough call. But you can choose either spell or trap, and all spells or traps. Let's see. All spells or traps that they control, and all cards they draw until their third turn, are destroyed. So, I wonder about that. This one could have points. Nope, no points added to it. Okay. Then we have Mind Crush. And I'm not sure if this has seen time on the ban list. Probably not. See, declare a card name. If that card is in your opponent's hand, they must discard all copies of it. Otherwise, you discard a random card. And with Dark World, it's not really. Let's see. With Dark World, that's not really a detractor. So you can go ahead and try Mind Crush if you have, so that you can be absolutely certain. But again, it's a trap, so you'd be doing it during your opponent's turn. Which actually, in response to their search, could be a good thing if you can figure out the timing. It's, in that case, it's not too bad, just difficult. Okay. And then here's another one of those that your opponent, I believe. Nope, it's different. When your opponent activates a normal spell, pay 1,000 life points. The effect of that normal spell becomes your opponent discards a random card. So this is another way of facilitating the secondary effects of Dark World monsters. And it would be during your opponent's turn, which could disrupt their field. So yeah, this is a pretty powerful trap. You might want 2 or 3 of these. Come on. Okay. The Transmigration Prophecy. Target 2 cards in the graveyard, shuffle those targets into the deck. And this includes your opponent's deck cards. So, this one's another awkward card from the deck because, like, nowadays the graveyard is considered a second hand. This would make it so that either you bring cards back into your deck that you'd want to search out, or your opponent. This would likely be used on your opponent to get rid of cards in their graveyard and make it more difficult for them to get it out. So it's an odd card. It's a wash. You may want it, you may not. And finally, Escape from the Dark Dimension. Target one of your banished dark monsters, special summon that target. It's a Call of the Haunted for dark monsters that are banished, which with the field spell isn't that difficult to accomplish. So, yes. Alright. Final review. This deck is not Genesys ready, and it is a pretty powerful structure deck for the modern game, though it can be left behind. And in order to use this deck in the Genesys format would require replacing too many of the high point cards that you have in here. Like the biggest offender being Silva, and cards like Terraforming. And interestingly, this is the first archetype I've seen that has points applied to its field spell. So this would get rid of Terraforming as an option. So this would be absolutely difficult to build in the Genesys format. But let me know your thoughts in the comment. And we've gone a little over the allotted time that we hoped, but still, it's pretty fast. In any case, if you enjoyed this, be sure to hit the subscribe button and make sure the bell's ringing. Also be sure to, let me see. Also be sure to check out my Sure page. I'll be putting polls and events there. And be sure to tune in next week as I'll be reviewing the Dragons Collide structure deck. But until then, thank you for watching. This is Controlled Chaos, signing out.